Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. We have a really red-hot program lined up for you. Our special guest this evening is Ed Holloway, who has been with us before. He's a retired state representative, and he's had some dealings with the Muslim program in this country and our other countries.
In the Middle East, yes.
In the Middle East. But before we get started, I want to mention a few things that are really important. This is a video, and it says E.W. Jackson. Now, this video is only 4 minutes long, and we want you to see it. So if you'll call us right now, 893-2444, we'll send you a free copy. It's only 4 minutes long, and it is one of the most important videos ever made, I would say. And tonight we want to discuss this video called The Project. And this is produced by
Glenn Beck, yes.
Glenn Beck. And it tells a lot of important things about the Muslim movement in the United States.
Dr. Simon, I'd like to mention that because Glenn Beck has had a series on his program called The Blaze. And in The Blaze, he's covered where the origin of the, quote, the project came from. And the project came from an individual in Switzerland whose name was Joseph Nader. And he was a liaison between the Swiss finance community and the Muslim Brotherhood. And I think it was about 2 months after the 9/11 attack that we had information intelligence discussing this man and what he was financing, some of the terrorist operations. And we asked the Swiss government to arrest him, and they did. And in the process, they went to his home, and in his home they found a large number of the documents, and one of them was the document called the Muslim Brotherhood Project. And that was a system of several steps to take over a country, the infiltration, the setting up of intelligence network, of terrorist training programs and all that. And it was a beginning of a long investigation. And in that process, the Blaze has put together and interviewed a large number of individuals who have been parts of the intelligence community. And but they have used deception in all forms of government, not only other countries, but in the United States as well, and terrorist organizations. They have broken the country into 4 segments. They have set it up. They have organized in various cities around the major metropolitan areas, a network of individuals and others. And the problem that they're facing now, is that there have been an extremely large number of mosques built in this country. At the end of World War II, there were about 50 in the country. Now there are several thousand.
My goodness.
But the problem there is that they are being financed and built by the Saudi Arabian government with the money on the insistence of the Wahhabis, which are the radical religious group in Saudi Arabia. And they are the ones that are providing the training for the clerics and the imams that are manning these various things. So, and they're teaching the children and others a more radical nature. So it was a fascinating series, and I'm glad you have made a copy of that. It's relatively long in that it has a combination of about 4 or 5 different programs that he had used segments of that, including people that I think were excellent authors. There was one Diana West, who is author of American Betrayed, and Stephen Coughlin, who was an advisor to the Pentagon, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the military about Islamic terrorism. But the main thing was the finding during an investigation in what we call the Holy Land Foundation.
Right.
And the individuals involved with that were part of the radical movement. And in that trial, they've assimilated about 50 boxes of information that they have gathered, and that's sealed and in the files of the Justice Department, and they're under a top security clearance, and they have not been released to the FBI or anyone else, and that's something that a lot of people are wanting to know.
The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process. The Muslim Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands, so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. The success of the movement in America in establishing an observant Islamic base with power and effectiveness will be the best support and aid to the global movement project.
Two months after 9/11, at the request of the White House, Swiss authorities raided the home and offices of a longtime Muslim Brotherhood envoy and international terrorism financier, Yosef Nada. One of the files that law enforcement officials seized, dated December 1st, 1982, was written in Arabic. It would become known as the Project, a detailed plan for Muslims to infiltrate and defeat the West. An incursion that would compromise leaders and law enforcement, control speech, and change the fabric of America. It would be slow, methodical, and permanent. The mission is clear. Among the primary objectives of the project, use deception in all areas of government and society to disguise the Islamist agenda. Support jihad movements across the world through propaganda and material support. Conduct covert operations within the halls of power in support of the global movement. Infiltrate existing Western institutions and work within them until they can be subverted to Islam. But the project is not a new approach to warfare. America has been attacked this way before.
The other thing that I think is really unbelievable about this is that the Muslim Brotherhood seems to be the basic organization for all these terrorist organizations.
That's true. They date back to the 1920s, and that's the grandfather, if you will, of all of these organizations that are around. They've been the primary advisor and financier in a lot of cases, and it's very, very widespread. So when we talk about the various ones that, like Hezbollah,
Yeah.
Hamas, and all of the other organizations, and Al-Qaeda, all of those have their roots in the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, even it said Al-Qaeda,
Al-Qaeda, very much so.
the ones that blew up the Twin Towers. And the thing that I can't get over is that Obama and the White House have using these Muslim Brotherhood people as advisors.
Well, one of the problems that they have had and others have had is the Muslim Brotherhood have portrayed themselves as a very moderate,
yeah.
benign organization, and they've been very successful in their public relations in that regard, not only here but in a lot of other countries.
But this Holy Land Foundation trial uncovered all of that.
Uncovered it.
So really, it's no secret, if you wanted to
Right.
look into it, that they are part of the radical Muslim movement.
There's a lot of information. There's been a lot of books written on it. One of them that I found was extremely
Yeah, tell us
interesting
about that.
is the Holy War on the home front. And this is the secret Islamic terrorist networks that are here in the United States. They have chapters in most of the major metropolitan areas, not only throughout the East Coast and the West Coast, but in central part of the United States as well. It's close as Cincinnati and Indianapolis, St. Louis, large organizations in Houston and others in the central part of the country. And the law enforcement are having a very hard time because anybody they pick up with suspicion, there are other organizations that come to their defense, civil liberties groups and others that feel they're infringing on these. Let's talk about the number of people that are here as immigrants.
Yeah.
And it's been a serious problem for law enforcement and how to combat this situation.
Here is Valerie Jarrett. I'm told that she is one of the top advisors in the White House.
She is. She's
with ties to this Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, she's very close to the Obamas, and she is also one of those from Chicago that have been involved with them for quite some time. They're personal friends and others. She does most of the scheduling, and if you want to see the president, you have to go through her. And she's been very close to a lot of the other groups that are around the country. So it's another part of the overall network of not. What we're dealing with is the question of diversity and political correctness. And while attacking Islam at any level, you're also attacking another religion, and you don't want to be called a racist or a radical.
Yeah. Now,
the others.
This project video that we're talking about, they implied that these 50 cartons of classified information may contain the location and names of these terrorist groups that are possibly getting ready to blow up the bridges and the waterworks and the power plants.
Like most things and problems with law enforcement is they have no jurisdiction until after the fact. And in that situation, there's one of the people that are making a great deal of the information available in the project is a guy named John Gordolo, who is a former FBI counterintelligence specialist. And
I think I remember him.
He goes into great detail about how it's very difficult for them to operate because of this. And you heard a general on one of the television talk shows on a Sunday morning said that in case of the Fort Hood massacre, that we cannot count that as a major terrorist organization because of the need for diversity in our armed forces and others. So these are the things that we're having to combat, and the more information that the average citizen can learn about Islam and the terrorist organizations, and no, there is no question that there are moderate Islamic people that are not part of it. But the problem is that the terrorists have reached such a level that they intimidate even other members of the Muslim faith to the point that they are afraid to come forward to discuss anything or give you information, because that information then goes back to the terrorist, who then takes retaliation against them. So it's a catch-22 in trying to deal with it, even within in the Muslim religion itself.
Well, you know, as we talk about this comes to mind all that happened in Libya, which is, I understand it, the man that was murdered, the ambassador, repeatedly asked for more protection and was denied. That sounds like the White House not turning over this terrorist information to the FBI and the police department.
It's a combination of things. There are people, there was a military people that were there that have been pulled out that said that they knew how dangerous the situation was. The problems in Benghazi go back till June of this year. There have been 2 bombings at that compound. There were other indications that the attack was inevitable. And the problem was that we have, in helping the opponents of Gaddafi, we've financed and we have armed a lot of those people who have now been taken over by these radical groups like Al-Qaeda and Hamas. And in that process, we're having to defend ourselves against things that we helped create. And that the primary information is, and they still say that we don't have all the facts, but we have a video that was taken showing the attack, the organized structure, the how pre-planned and delicate the whole operation was. And in that video, it's all very clear that it was not a spontaneous reaction to a so-called movie that was produced in the United States.
Another thing that's in this video is that, you know, Obama basically told Mubarak, the president of Egypt, that it was time for him to go.
Right.
Is that not right? And then he was replaced by this other Muslim Brotherhood man, Morsi, who is, you know, even worse. So they in this video, they had a speech by Morsi in which he said that the Quran was their constitution and that the most important thing was to die for the cause of Allah.
Well, this is something that's also out there very open, and if you watch the Al Jazeera, the network of the Islamic, all of this stuff is available, and it's all out there for anybody that wants to take time to look for it. It's available. They've been very open from the very beginning that was the purpose of the rebellions. The intellectuals, the other people that wanted change and all of that, it was fine. But what has happened is that those movements were all hijacked early on, and the terrorists have taken over. And in that process, the Arab Spring has turned into an Arab winter that is going to affect the whole Middle East. There is a growing change there that has a lot of ramifications, not only in Egypt, but Libya and the rest of the countries.
This is another email I got that was on this same subject, and it says that these, a lot of the donations going into the Obama campaign were over the internet, and as long as they're under $200, they evade the Federal Election Commission reporting requirements.
Right. Well, this is true of a lot of contributions. There's a thing called bundling.
Yeah.
And in that process, you get a lot of small contributions. You center those through, and or you can take individuals who want to give a large amount of money and then have individuals break it up and give it in smaller sections. So you can have organizations that, let's say, will get a $10,000 donation to the political campaign, and then through their membership have each of the members give $200 until the $10,000 is gone. So that's an old tactic that's been used for a long time, not only by these type of people, but by other political organizations in this country for a long period of time. So anytime you pass a law, there's always those who have
a way to get around it.
A way to get around it. That's a challenge, and that same thing is happening with the computer. The more security you put on your computer, the more that there's a hacker out there that says, there's some way I can break it. And they do.
Now, the other thing that I saw in this video, the project by Glenn Beck, is they said they're putting more and more propaganda starting in the grade schools in the United States and especially in the colleges.
Well, this is one of the things that happened, started in the 60s and has gone forward. One of the foundings of all of these organizations through the universities. There was a group that came to this country in the 80s, and they attended very much a lot of the universities in this country. And in that process, there was one group that the other students called them the mullahs because of their Islamic extremism. They became engineers. One of them was the one that did the study and figured the way to use the airplanes to knock down the towers. Another one was at Purdue University, and others that are coming up with ways that was used in the original first attempted bombing of the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
And they have since been arrested, and the information about them and all of that has become public, and it goes back to the 80s. So this is nothing new. It's been going on for a long time. And these organizations and these projects, and there was a map that recently been published showing the terrorist training camps that are located all over the United States.
Yeah.
But until they commit terrorist acts, there's nothing much we can do about them and the way our laws are structured. So until we make some major changes and some new approaches in how we gather information and how we can assimilate it into a prosecuting type situation, we're going to continue to have these problems. And we've been extremely lucky that no other major attacks have taken place so far. I give a hat off to the law enforcement. There's one group now that's working very hard. The problem with all of the immigrants from Somalia is that they brought with them a narcotic that's very similar to cocaine called KHAT, K-H-A-T, and it very much looks like rhubarb. And it's shipped in fresh. It comes in primarily from Great Britain with what they call mules that bring it in fresh and others. And it's become a very large item in financing the terrorist operations in Yemen. The money that's filtered from the sales of the cat in this country is filtered back and goes back into the coffers of the people in Yemen. These are the kind of things that our law enforcement had a state trooper that stopped one in Ohio. And he looked at him and wanted to know, where in the world did you find all that rhubarb? So there have not been enough training in our law enforcement and agencies that of some of these new developments that are taking place.
Now, this is a video that we made a few months back about Islam and terrorism and slavery, and it also goes into, the idea that the Muslims are making slaves of the black people today.
Well, they have always been in the slave trade.
Yeah.
It's something that goes back for a long time. In fact, the early slave traders, both the Dutch and the British and others that were supplying slaves to the Western Hemisphere, were buying their slaves from
The Muslims.
from Arab
Yeah.
that gathered them, brought them to the coast, and then they were brought to this country. But the funny thing about all that was that only 4% of the slaves ever ended up in the United States. That most of them were used by the French and the Dutch in the processing of sugar in the Mediterranean or in the islands in the Caribbean.
Now, we've got several of these videos we'd like to send to you for free. This one is called Peter Hammond, who's a missionary in South Africa, and it's called Slavery, Terrorism, and Islam. And we'll send that to you. This is the project, the one we're talking about now. This is the E.W. Jackson 4-minute video.
He does an excellent job of explaining to the black community what's been going on primarily within the Democratic Party and the use of the black community.
So if you call that number right now, 893-2444, we'll get them out to you. They're free, and it's something you need to see and show to others before the election. The other thing I'd like to send you is this voter guide, which this voter guide is all of Jefferson County. If you live in Bullitt County, we can send you a different one. When you call and ask for your voter guide, tell them which county you're in so that we'll make sure you get the right voter guide. But this is a comparison of the two presidential candidates, And on the inside, it has all of the elections going, including the judges and the school board, which are extremely important. Metro Council is in here too, so we would like you to be sure to ask for that when you call for your DVDs. That number again is 893-2444, and you can call right now, and if there's not a person answering the phone, there will be an answering machine, and you just leave your name and phone number and what you want. Again, now this is the one from South Africa, and this one also has Obama saying his Muslim faith on it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the bishop's 4-minute video. So if you think about that, tell the operator or the answering machine what it is you want, because we make sure that you get what you want. And of course, ask for the voter guide for the election coming up in November 6th. Here it says that on November 4th, September 4th, the Democratic Party completely removed God from the party platform. And then they were forced to put it in later by a grassroots movement. But it's amazing. And the other thing it says on here, why should the United States continue to send your tax dollars to Egypt and other countries that burn our flag and murder and desecrate the body of our ambassador? So these are some of the important issues that we need to remember.
Well, one of the most important things, I think, if someone wants to really understand what's going on, the project is probably the best that I have seen. It's very in-depth. It covers not only one individual, but a multitude of individuals from diverse backgrounds, from various high-level political positions in both the FBI, the Defense Department, and others that have come forward now and are talking about what's really going on. It's a critical thing to understand.
Here is a bumper sticker. This will be free too. This says Obama versus Christianity. Here's another bumper sticker about Obamacare. These are the Jesus bumper stickers. They are all free. We'll just send them to you if you call that number right away. Ed, we're running out of time. I certainly appreciate you being with us. Well, God bless you, and tune in next week for the rest of the news.